Thank you for joining us for today's panel. We close out the week with Crazy Talented Asians Nisei Week Edition, presented by AJ Raphael, East West Players, the Nisei Week Foundation, and Nisei Week Virtual Series. An online concert, celebration, and performances from East West Players' friends and Little Tokyo favorites, including Taiko Project, Didi Magno Hall, Paul Date, and of course AJ Raphael himself. You will not want to miss it. Happy Nisei Week!
Welcome everyone to East West Wednesdays, August edition. We are all so glad you could join us. And today we have an amazing panel of leaders from Little Tokyo. And so we are looking forward to having a conversation about what is happening in the First Street North Little Tokyo area and what all of our organizations are doing to combat not only the pandemic, but all that is going around in terms of the conversation around equity in our communities. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and then we're going to get some introductions.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Snail. So just to start off, my name's Andy Lowe. I'm the Director of Production and Casting for East West Players, and I'm from San Diego originally. And for me, as I was starting my own little small Asian American theater movement in San Diego, I found myself coming up to LA and specifically Little Tokyo quite often. It was a point of inspiration. It was a point of solidarity. It was an example of what I could have if I kept working hard enough. I would come to Little Tokyo. I would see a new work being developed by HereandNow Theatre company. I would stop by and get some ramen in Little Tokyo. I would bump into Ling Nishikawa. We'd end up at the bar at Cosmos. We'd bump into Tamlin Tomita. We'd be singing karaoke. We'd end up, I find out about like films that we're shooting and film, the Asian American Film Festival, the DHHWY play readings. It was such a great source to come to and find all of the centralization of creativity and inspiration in this community. And to fast forward to present day, it was a great honor to kind of join this community. And I just thought in this week, Nisei Week, that we would pay homage and see how all of our organizations, all the centralization of creativity is doing in these really challenging times. So I thought, let's just go ahead and start off with everyone introducing themselves. And just introduce yourself and your organization and your connection with Little Tokyo. So let's start off with Soji.
Okay. My name is Soji Kashiwagi, and I'm the Executive Director of the Grateful Crane Ensemble, which is a nonprofit theater group that's been around since 2001, so it's our 19th year. And our mission is really to pay tribute to our Japanese American elders by telling their stories and singing their favorite Japanese and American songs. And so our relationship to Little Tokyo, we're not based in Little Tokyo, but I did some thinking back and realized that we performed at least 19 spaces within Little Tokyo, anywhere with a stage, a microphone, a place where you could set up chairs. We've been there in Little Tokyo. That includes JCCC, Janum, East West Players, Casa Heiwa, 2 hotels, 7 churches, even the balcony at the Far Bar. We've sung songs from there. And doesn't even count countless number of concerts we've done at Oja's with Helenotta and Kurt Kuriyoshi. It's a number of different performances in Little Tokyo. So we have a long connection to Little Tokyo.
And how about Ova?
Hello there. I'm Ova Sao Peng, Associate Artistic Director with Teada Productions. And we are a theater company, nomadic. It's been around for 20 plus years, and we work with communities, specifically refugee and immigrants, to highlight and develop stories and theater through that engagement. And Tiara actually had a lot of programming in the early days in Little Tokyo. Little Tokyo, as Andy had said, is just a wonderful hub of just artistic and creative, just a center where, I remember going there. That's actually where I met Leilani. my partner and the founding artistic director of Teada Productions. And similar, all these spaces, the Japan America Theater, JACCC, having either been on those stages or in those workshops or in those spaces, just participating in actually all these other wonderful panel of organizations here. So it's just been wonderful to have a space that does elevate, the Asian American, artistic voices out there.
Great. And how about Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Lee from Cold Tofu. Cold Tofu is the nation's first and longest running Asian American improv sketch comedy troupe. Little Tokyo has been the home of Cold Tofu since the beginning. It was founded in 1981. The first home, I believe, was Janum, even before Janum moved to their new space on First and Central. And Cold Tofu was also performed all around Little Tokyo. I would also like to claim Helenotta singing at Oja as one of the venues for Cold Tofu. So, yeah.
All right, and how about Marie Wren?
Hi, Marie Redvelez. She, her pronouns, one of the co-producing artistic leaders of Artists at Play. And we focus on a lot of new and emerging Asian American contemporary work to present. And I would say that actually we all met in various places around Little Tokyo originally. And so that's, we consider that part of our home, even though we don't have a home theater. And also we have partnered and presented projects at East West Players and JCCC. And so we also love to support all of the organizations represented in Little Tokyo and to, socialize when we could over there.
And how about Helen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Helenotta. I'm the VP of Institutional Advancement at JACCC. And JACCC is, of course, an arts, cultural, and community center located in the heart of Little Tokyo. We have a 2.2-acre campus that includes the 880-seat theater called the Otatani Theater, the Isamu Noguchi Design Plaza and Sculpture, our JACCC Center building that houses various nonprofit organizations, as well as the Japanese American National War Memorial Court, and of course the newly Toshizo Watanabe Culinary Cultural Center. And I have to say that I'm really happy to be on this panel because I think every single person on this panel I've had the honor and privilege of working with. So whether it's at Oja or not, I feel very privileged and honored to be surrounded by these very distinguished individuals. So thank you.
Great. And how about Tracy?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Tracy Kato Kiriyama. I am an artist with Pole Project Ensemble, and today I'm representing Tuesday Night Project. My pronouns are she and they, and Tuesday Night Project is the presenter of a series called Tuesday Night Cafe, and we started back in 1999, February of 1999. So we're in our 22nd year as an organization, and we're the longest running Asian American produced public art series in the country, with a venue that exists in front of the Union Center for the Arts, and that background that Snail has, that's sort of our background for the TNC series. But we also engage in a lot of different artist support, throughout the year. And it's been a real privilege and pleasure to work in Little Tokyo with, virtually every organization, over time. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a good one. So thank you so much for having us.
And John?
Hi, my name is John Miyazaki, and I have to confess, this is my first Zoom thing ever. I'm representing HereandNow Theatre Company, and we started at East LA College and East West Players, and now have been at Higashi Honganji for a long time. I think it's over 20 years, close to 17 to 20 years. And we focus on stories and people bringing their stories to life and the individual story. And I also work with the youth at Higashi Honganji, specifically the Lumbini kids, but also some of the after school programs. And I too am happy to see everybody. And I haven't worked with everybody, but I hope to at some point in time.
Great. And Abe?
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name's Abe Ferrer, and I'm a staff member at Visual Communications, which is the nation's premier Asian Pacific American media art center. We were established in 1970, and we're currently celebrating our golden year anniversary. That's 50 years. That's a long time. As far as our involvement with Little Tokyo, the visual communication staff has really been here since the early to mid 1970s, after bouncing around from a couple of locations in Silver Lake and in West Adams and and what have you. And we settled in Little Tokyo at around a time when a lot of drastic change was happening here in this community. Little Tokyo redevelopment, displacement, which is very the second big wave of displacement that's happening, right now as we speak. And, we've aligned ourselves with a variety of organizations that were also fighting gentrification at that time, most prominently the Little Tokyo People's Rights Organization. And, again, and a lot of our productions and media works that we've produced really have reflected, that relationship with this community and the factors that threaten it. So we've, been around for quite a while.
Great. And Snail.
Hi everyone, my name is Snail Design. I'm the producing artistic director of East West Players. And it's just so great to have everyone. I think what's wonderful is, yes, we're seeing the depth and breadth of organizations that are associated with Little Tokyo. And also how talented Helenotta is to sing and do improv and be a wonderful fundraiser and VP at JCCC.
And last but not least, Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Fukushima. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the managing director of the Little Tokyo Community Council, which Helenotta was once on the board of. I felt like I needed to add in my Helen thing. And the Little Tokyo Community Council is the 501c3 nonprofit community coalition of all stakeholders in Little Tokyo. So residents, businesses, churches, temples, artists, and anyone who really considers Little Tokyo home. And we are dedicated to protect, promote, and preserve Little Tokyo, and through doing that through our values of self-determination and community control. So our relationship with Little Tokyo, it's all we do. And I haven't worked with everyone here, but I look forward to. And I am also the only non-arts person in the room, but I work a lot with artists, and I think about what Leslie Ito once said as far as being an arts enabler. And I feel like that's the role I try to take as it relates to the arts community in Little Tokyo.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. So just as of today, we're now basically crossing the 5-month mark since we all went into shutdowns due to COVID-19 and social distancing measures. So how has this affected each of your organizations? Are there programs you had to cancel? Are there projects that you had put on hold? Free for all.
Yes. that's the initial answer. Yes. Yeah. So for Teada, it's been interesting because the pandemic was, in a sense, the first pivot for us, because then we had all these programming that we were planning for. We work nationally as well as locally. Nationally, we have several shows, and specifically Masters of the Currents, which is a play about the Micronesian community that was developed, and we were planning to tour that to Utah and now that's been canceled. Locally, our local programming has been in partnership with refugee and specifically asylum seekers with another organization called Program for Torture Victims. And that has been shifted and canceled. And then the bigger thing was also the fact that we were going to all be in Hawaii for the conference and festival, the CATA, the Coalition of Asian American Theater and Artists conference and festival that was supposed to be held in Hawaii. Actually, right now, today, this week, should have been, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we've had to shift. So the first pivot for us was to focus on creating, well, what are the programs that we can do and jump into virtually? And so that was, and similar, I've been seeing a lot of programming on Zoom, on online platforms, and specifically Zoom that we've had to do. And one of our programs that we recently completed was what we call our virtual lab. So offering Teada artists the opportunity to explore and experiment with this idea of, well, how do you teach a workshop or present through this platform, and who is our audience? So that was the kind of the first thing that we had done. And then as we were doing that and we were doing so well, what happened was then that the second pivot was George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd, and how that became another pivot on then, well, we're talking about the pandemic, now we're talking about racial justice and how do we deal with that? So for us, it's been a big, big, big shift. And at this point, I feel, and personally, and Teada right now, we're in this for the long haul in terms of just the pandemic, and I don't see an end to it, not by the end of this year, possibly not until the mid next year. So those are some of the things that, but we've been able to adapt and adjust, and knock on wood, we've also been able to sustain ourselves and reprogram in the way that we've been able to do. So yes, it's been drastic.
Quick pause before we move forward. I think you guys are, if you can feel free to leave your mics open so that we don't have any pauses in terms of, just feel free to kind of engage with conversation as we normally would. So continuing on, that will get edited out. Anyone else?
Well, just to continue on with what Ova had mentioned, I know that this thing has compelled us to look at the way that we do things, because I think that arts and transmission of culture as normal does not and cannot exist right now. So in terms of challenges, I know that they're all tough and what have you, and I know that other people have things to say, but I kind of look at this as an opportunity, to reinvent, the way that we do things, the way that we reach people, again, how we take advantage of spaces and what have you. With your indulgence, Andy and Snail, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to share an image, on screen of an image that I made many years ago, which I had published on my Facebook page. Many of us use a building here, the Union Center for the Arts and Visual Communications, is currently based in the basement level of this building, and the 1990s it was a period in which we were compelled to do a lot of reinvention of the way that we did art and how we reached art and how art and culture could transform lives and reach people, and what have you. And so what I wanted to do is I just basically wanted to share an image that we had made a very, very long time. This is actually the front of our building, and Tracy knows this image. This basically was a very, very early iteration of what became Tuesday Night at the Cafe. That was
babies. They're babies.
Launched, in 1991. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that this was the HereandNow Theatre company, which basically was all but a resident theater company, at TNC, along with the members of Visiting Violet, and basically, much in the same way that a lot of our organizations were able to exploit new spaces in Little Tokyo, as redevelopment, made some of these spaces available and what have you. Today, I see a situation where we see a new frontier, a necessary frontier, but a very exploitable one in the online sphere. Visual Communications is a signature event, the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, had gone online to a very, very positive reaction back in May, and we are going to basically do another showcase in September, mid-September. But then what does the future hold in terms of being able to make space for our artists and our communities in the new environments that we are compelled to to be in, whether or not they're virtual, whether or not we reimagine the new space, and what's going to happen to these spaces if the wrong things happen on November 3rd and we're stuck with 4 more years of bullshit. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this image. So, basically, like, there definitely are threats, much in the same way that, a new wave of displacement, gives upon us, what have you. But as, our founders told us the night of the election in 2016, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to fight, and it's an opportunity to reinvent, and an opportunity to to reimagine art and culture as an agent of change and a transmission of culture. So I think that those are some of the takeaways that that I have in confronting this situation. I think it's the template that Visual Communications has always used in the face of a lot of crazy things that have been happening for the 50 years that we've been around.
Great. Thanks
You
for
know,
sharing.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to add, it's interesting because for obvious reasons, JCCC, we are a theater. We have an office space. We have a plaza. We work with different community organizations and having events or film festivals and things like that. So obviously this pandemic has affected us drastically, as it has everyone else. And I think one of the things that we are shifting towards, of course, is virtual programming. But specifically, we were really worried also about the local residents, especially our older adults, our Little Tokyo older adults or seniors, who would actually come to JCCC on a daily basis. They were on the plaza. We actually had this program called Radio Taiso, which is basically radio exercise. And so it was their daily morning exercise with us. And so there was that, there was calligraphy, there was all these traditional arts that we were sharing with them, as well as ukulele. So these moments of not being able to gather, and for those residents being isolated, we were really, really concerned. And what I love about this community, especially the arts and culture organizations, as well as Little Tokyo Community Council, is that we always come together in moments of things where we can't move forward. And what's been really, really amazing is, like, we have this thing called Little Tokyo Little Podcast. So for seniors, they may not be comfortable sitting in front of a computer like we can to enjoy a program. But we were able to put together with, I think it was Tuesday Night Project, correct, Tracy, and Rafu Shimpo, this program that's produced every 2 weeks. And it's a little bit of Radio Taiso for our seniors, some music, some community news. And it's accessible in 4 different languages: English, Japanese, Spanish, and Korean. And they can access it by way of a phone. So if they don't have a computer or some kind of smartphone or whatever, they can actually just dial in a phone number and listen to the program. But all that comes together when organizations reach out to each other and figure out ways to build a better community or provide a service that will help those in isolation not feel so isolated. So that's just something I thought I'd like to share, because in the end, when we're all able to help each other and connect and build bridges, we're able to do really great things for the community.
Yeah. And if I could add to that, what Helen is talking about is in part related to the work of Sustainable Little Tokyo, which for the past few years since Scott Oshima joined the team as an artist organizer, they have really focused on adding art strategies to the work of neighborhood and community development, and how do we do these campaigns around self-determination and community control with artists in the planning and the brainstorming, not just coming in later to design a flyer or something. And I think that work being done intentionally a few years ago helped set the stage for now having the creative thinkers in the room to think about, okay, what does this pivot look like for us? How do we continue this work? And then also really going back and focusing on what are the needs, right? It's not just doing the same work for the sake of this is what we're used to, but really thinking about the time we're in and saying, what do we need to do? What do our people, our community need? What do our artists need? And how do we bring all these things together in support and in collaboration with each other to then make these things happen? So even what Helen was talking about as far as the ability to have folks call in is knowing that the target audience for that is low-income seniors who live in Little Tokyo. So they might not be able to watch an Instagram Live or a Facebook Live or the other ways that people access podcasts. So being very intentional about making sure the outcome actually meets those goals.
Right.
Yeah, I'll add to that. With our venue, Tuesday Night Cafe, it's something that runs spring through fall, and it's outside. And we literally, the week of when things were shutting down, you know, we were still trying to figure out if we needed to like make the call on having like a show or two starting in April. Which obviously escalated to, okay, we're not going to have any shows this year. And, you know, I keep reminding, though, our awesome producer, lead curator, Sean Mira, that, and the whole team, that, you know, we still go on as an organization, right? And so the structure of our organization, we're grassroots, we're virtually all volunteer. And we're all, you know, very, very involved in community organizing. So I think along with the really stressful, but also the very exciting time of the uprising, we've just been diving in with other organizations that we're each involved in. And, you know, I've kind of been on beast mode, you know, in terms of community organizing and working in different capacities, right? But one thing that we are doing with TMP, we've been doing a program since the fall called Tea and Letter Writing. And we would always do it in person at the museum, at the Japanese American National Museum. And we would basically open up with tea service and conversation, and then we would read letters from the collections department related to issues of family separation. And then we would conduct different kinds of creative correspondence and letter writing exercises. And so we've gotten, you know, together with different kinds of partners to get letters into detention centers. And then we've grown partnerships from that point. So the week of March 11th, that was the day that like NBA canceled, remember that? And like Tom Hanks got COVID, like all that stuff was just like coming down. And we were, then it was March 12th, the day of our Tea and Letter program. And it was like a huge storm that day. And I was on the phone with some of my team about whether we were going to that evening hold Tea and Letter at the museum. And literally more and more cancellations were coming down. It was just getting nuts. The storm was getting worse. One of our teammates was like, I kind of have the sniffles. I don't think I should show up. So we realized like, okay, absolutely nobody is gonna come tonight in person to the museum to write letters in the rain. Like that's not gonna happen. So from that day, we went virtual. And I have to say, like, it's been really eye-opening, you know, because the thing is like culture does not stop, right? Art, creativity, process, it doesn't stop. So I think it's just our job to lift it up and do it in different ways. And what was cool in going virtual, it's almost like I don't know if I want to stop doing a virtual version of it, because it's allowed us to have participants who would never usually actually be able to drive into downtown at all. We've had people join us from different cities, different states, right, different time zones. And people are able to join on with their kids, you know, like multiple generations on one screen, writing letters. And now we've gotten hundreds of letters into not just detention centers, but also into sites of incarceration for especially queer folks who are incarcerated, and then also some seniors isolated in Little Tokyo. So, you know, it's just something that we figured, let's just keep going and moving with it. Yeah.
Yeah, Artists of Play also found like it really interesting with the pivot to everything virtual from March, because we were already working remotely from each other as producers, and so our meetings stayed the same essentially, and it was really about like how do we work with artists and with people in different ways, and so we were able to take the time that everyone used during a pause to start to strategize how do we work with artists, and exactly what Tracy said, it opened up being able to work with people who were either all of a sudden everyone's available, and then also to be able to work with artists who we've always wanted to work with but who were not in Los Angeles. And so I think it actually has helped us sort of strengthen our it's helped us strengthen our sort of like national reach of being able to work with artists. And additionally with the uprising, you know, we really started to use this time to reflect and think about how are we a part of this work, and so we spent the last few months looking at things like our mission statement. Like, is our mission statement equitable enough? Is, you know, really asking ourselves hard questions for reflection and, you know, to continue moving forward. And so and then programming wise, we've paused our, you know, we were working on a world premiere, and so but actually what's really great is that this pause is allowing us to do workshops and you know, and try to really give our artists better tools to be ready for production. And so it's, you know, even though it is a pause on the outside, on the inside we're still churning and we're still working, and so it's, you know, just kind of all starting to really reflect on the outside of what work we're doing.
How about you, Julie? I mean, I know you have had to pivot like some of your classes, you know, doing improv, which is not necessarily an obvious transition into a Zoom or digital space.
Yeah, we were in the middle of our level 3 class, and we're just getting into Commedia dell'arte, which is very physical and very in person. So we had to pivot and do that online. We actually have our classes at St. Francis Xavier Chapel in their clubhouse space in Little Tokyo. We've done everything online. We're still hoping that we can get back and finish up the class in person, maybe in 2022, because I don't want to sacrifice that in person, you know, thing, because that's what we need in the class. But piggybacking off of what Tracy said, this Zoom thing has actually opened up a lot of opportunity, because we've been so restricted in when we can meet because of space. We're very fortunate that we're able to meet at Janum every week on Thursday, and then we also rent space at the church. But we've been having classes at 11 a.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., all throughout the week. So now we can offer a variety of classes, you know, like almost every night. We have 7 classes going on right now concurrently in a single week. So that's been very exciting for us. And I think when we do return to a more normal space where we're in person, I think we'll still maintain this online presence to supplement the work that we do. And actually, through Helen's referrals, we've actually collaborated the past couple of months with Nisei Week. They're doing their events online. They're having virtual events, and Cold Tofu has been asked to kind of do a sketch for them. So we've been working on that. And also with Kizuna for their storytelling time. And what's cool with Kizuna is that they've been able to have classes or their summer program, and they have almost 200 students that log in every week and participate in the summer program. So it's exciting and very, it's an honor to be able to be part of all these community events through this medium. So that's been a huge plus for us at Cold Tofu.
And how about you, Soji? I mean, I know Grateful Crane, you've been bouncing around now. I mean, have you been able to continue finding ways to reach your audiences in this time?
Yeah, that's been tricky because it all started at that second week of March when we had to cancel our dinner, which was supposed to be on March 21st. And then everything, week by week, all these things started dropping out, and we had trips planned, road trips planned, performances in Berkeley, Sacramento, Klamath Falls, Washington, D.C., and our fall Goodwill tour to Tohoku, Japan, which we've been doing since 2014. We've done 3 already, and our 4th one got canceled. So it's just been a matter of like, what can we do, since we can't meet personally, what can we do just to help out? And so what Helen was talking about, the seniors in Little Tokyo who are isolated, I just sent an email out to some of our members, our Grateful Crane members, asking for donations. And so we were able to put together, working with LTSC, comfort foods, Asian, Japanese, Korean comfort foods, Korean nori, ochazuke nori, things like that seniors would really find comfort in during these tough times. It gets delivered to their doors, and so we were able to do that. And then, we've also found that helping other groups with their virtual performances. For example, we were just Sunday shooting a music video of our group members singing Sukiyaki, and it's going to be part of the Keiro no Hi virtual program on September 12th, which Keiro is putting on. And so, and then a reading of my play that was done at the 2018 Two Lake Pilgrimage called Garage Door Opener, which I actually wrote in the East West Players Writers Workshop in 2016, 2015, 2016. It's going to be part of the Tadaima virtual pilgrimages. So I think that's going to be happening in the next week or so, because it closes not this weekend, but the following weekend. So there's different ways that we could add in to help or support other groups. For our own group, we've come up with this idea. I posted a picture of myself wearing a what we call a rice sack mask. And so it got this enormous reaction on Facebook. And so we talked to the person who made these for us. It was she did it just to give to us as a gift. Well, she's now turning out a whole bunch so we could sell them as a fundraiser for Grateful Crane's virtual programs. And so, so we're just coming up with different ways to survive, different ways to support and help out the community during this time.
And John, usually around this time, you guys would be working on the Summer of Stories, right?
Yeah, Summer Stories would be coming up, and then also a couple weeks ago was the Higashi Obon, which we do a lot for and with. That was probably the biggest change, I guess, or pivot. I'm not sure, but through all of this, I think it, for us, or for me, maybe, it allowed us to take a big breath. And as all of us do, work 24/7, nonstop in these organizations, I think we never took a breath, or I never took a breath. So I think that we're kind of in this place of not just what's next or how to do all of these programs that we're traditionally doing this time of year or around this time or throughout the year, but also why, and kind of pausing a little bit, which has been really good. And it's kind of a question that, at least for myself, we never seem to ask, like, really, what, just take a pause and a breath and stop, and then why. And we've kind of been really doing that kind of introspective moment. Yeah.
I mean, particularly with all of the turmoil and the news cycle. Snehal, I mean, what do you see as the way forward where we're at now?
Yeah, so I want to, in terms of East West Players' response to everything that's going on, welcome to East West Wednesdays. So we were in the middle of a musical that was about to open. We were about to launch our Theater for Youth show. Our gala was about to happen. So we had a lot of programs that we had to shift. And as Abe put it so eloquently, I think this is an opportunity moment, from this crisis, from these crises, from everything. And the Union Center for the Arts came about the gathering of all these arts organizations because of the Northridge earthquake. The building had been sitting vacant. It had been damaged in the earthquake. And then through both FEMA money and support from the community, we were able to create this space that so many organizations and individuals are connected to. And so for us, it's just been about how can we create gathering space now virtually, because we don't have, the theater to do that. And so it's been through programs like this. And I think the big question now is, we know we're going to be in this it's the long game, right? Whereas we thought maybe 3 months or 6 months or by the fall, and we keep pushing that little time marker. And now we're like the spring, and I think we're looking at least a year or 2 years. And I don't think we'll ever return back to what we were at, and I don't think we want to.
Right.
And so it's a question of what is the need going to be moving forward. What I think people are going to want to gather, I think everyone in this call is a community leader or in this group. And, what feeds us is bringing people together, being in community, having that dialogue. And how can we hold on to that virtually and slowly bring it back in person is going to be important. I think that's just important for human connection, to be able to be with other people in the same space at some point.
Yeah.
Going forward. And I think that there's lots of questions about all of our forms, right? So I think this is going to cause innovation in all of the art forms that we are involved with, because now the technology question is embedded in with that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that a little bit, Snail, and I can mention that when we talk about arts and transmission of culture, here in Little Tokyo and in other communities, I really don't think that you can separate that from what is happening in terms of all other aspects of community building. You had mentioned the formation or the reimagining of the old Union Church into the Union Center for the Arts. I can even see that happening many, many years ago, specifically 1988, when the Little Tokyo Service Center invited members of the UCLA Nikkei Student Union to come in and do some major building cleanup of the San Pedro Firm building, which is actually right next to the Aratani courtyard and what have you. So I think that the whole idea, of art and culture, I think is inseparable, from the whole idea of community building, whether or not it's social services, youth development, anti-displacement initiatives, and a whole lot of other things that I think that is evident in not only these major institutions like the Japanese American National Museum and Little Tokyo Service Center and JACCC, but initiatives to to reposition ourselves as active players and how we want this community to happen. I mean, like, I had to acknowledge people who were at the forefront of doing this. I think that when we're talking about other arts organizations, I don't think that we can let this conversation slip without mentioning the Little Tokyo Arts Workshop, which is basically like the arts arm of the Little Tokyo People's Rights Organization. Miles Hamada doing all of those silkscreen t-shirts and posters for events ranging from community mochizukis to DORs to a whole lot of things. Again, then the initiatives of people like Tracy to bring Art Attack and reimagine open spaces like the Aratani Courtyard and Irene Soriano to bring in a literary series, a long-running literary series into Janum, and what have you. One of the things I'm thinking about, and if you indulge me, I'm going to go ahead and share another picture. It's like I'm sharing pictures, but what I want to do is I want to share with you an image that I made from back in 1986, and this was the Noguchi Plaza back in 1986. This is a Children's Day. I know that Soji had mentioned Children's Day and what have you. And this is like, a ballet folklorico from Plaza della Raza, that was there and stuff. I think that, maybe it's just me, maybe it's a generational kind of a thing, but I do definitely think in terms of, a holistic third world kind of a thing. We have allies in all sorts of places, such as Boyle Heights, such as the Crenshaw district, across the freeway in Chinatown and a whole bunch of places. And I think that one of the things, when we're talking about, the opportunity to reimagine space, for creation and space for community building, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't necessarily think in terms of strictly binary kind of a thing where, we have to, consider, issues of anti-Blackness. I think that, I feel a need for us to think very, very, holistically about this. And in terms of assessing where our communities are at right now, I've heard somebody mention this in a SLT conversation, that in order to be able to get back, to this situation where Little Tokyo and neighboring communities, can truly be, multi-ethnic and sharing, what have you. The Asian American community needs to, do a little bit of tidying up in terms of its own house, right? I wonder sometimes whether or not initiatives such as the 626 Night Market or K-Town Night Market, or ethnic specific festivals, or even things out in the real world, such as the impact of the motion picture Crazy Rich Asians, and again all these Netflix Asian American things, is basically like a way of us essentially like building a wall, and not basically confronting holistically, the realities of the fact that, we exist in a larger ecosphere and not just strictly an Asian American one. So again, just getting back to the whole idea of opportunity and challenge, that I think that, we have to be mindful, of those things that, this community has become, both for the better and for the not so good, and address them, because if I'll get back to it again, we are not in a normal time, and I don't think that we can or should go back to normal, because this is our opportunity to to change things, because of the pandemic, because of our government, because of a whole lot of things, and what have you. It's really brought into very, very sharp relief that we are not currently in normal times, and for us to move forward as a creative community and as a community as a whole, we need to change a lot of things.
And I know we're down to just a little bit of time left, but I just wanted to open it up. I know some folks have to leave. Is there any last thoughts that anyone would like to share before we adjourn for this?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, in the spirit of Nisei Week, since this will be right in the middle of what would have been traditionally Nisei Week, as we sort of look forward, adding to what Abe said, as well as, there was a moment in time when Little Tokyo was deserted because of World War II. And specifically, Nisei Week stopped happening between 1942 and 1948. But somehow the community came together, and in 1949, the first Nisei Week post-World War II happened. And I feel like that's such a short amount of time for something to come back after such a drastic moment in history. So I feel like as we move forward, I'm not saying we always have to look back, but we should refer to what happened in our history to see how we can move forward in creative, innovative ways as it pertains to us today. So just, I thought we should include that since we are sort of happening during Nisei Week.
And I just wanted to say, I mean, just from this gathering, just to honor the generosity of spirit in terms of just all of our organizations and our individuals in terms of you know, being in just coming together and sharing knowledge, you know, and the words that come to my mind from these conversations are, it's given us time to kind of reflect on ourselves, our organizations, our connection to the global world, and consider how we adapt. And, you know, and it also goes to show just, I mean, looking at the history, how resilient, I mean, you know, the space and the organizations that have come through, you know, have been. I mean, our communities have always been resilient. And these are just some of the ways that I see that. And I think moving forward, the word that for me that came up was hybrid. Like there may, you know, as things open up, if they do open up, there's going to be hybrid opportunity. Again, we're going to hopefully take the best practices from what we've learned and create, I think, hybrid opportunities for us to continue to engage with our communities.
Well, thank you all so very much for coming together and joining and sharing this digital space with us. We hope to see all of your guys' programming as it comes up, and you know, please send us links, and we'll come back when we can. And happy New Year.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see everyone.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for
You all.
sharing.